That's what I'm talking about, son. Get you some of that daggone pie.
Woo-hoo! Looky there. There's your bug-eyed big one right there.
Getting started. We're getting started.
Here's what I'm talking about. Gosh dang gorilla.
Let's go, baby. Straight meat. God, look at that big one.
All right, everybody. Hey, welcome into the show. I'm Big Ed, the host of the BAM Pod. And on today's show, we have Jared Lintner, top pro. He is from California, now lives in Georgia. He's fishing the Bass Pro Tour. And, you know, we're going to talk to him tonight about a little bit of catching some bass in cold water, how he approaches this and how he's done it across the country. So, Jared, welcome in, man. We really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, you know, the cold water bass is it can be really trying, but it can pay off big dividends also.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those times where I think a lot of people you know, put the boat away. They're kind of done. They're like, nah, I'll wait for it to warm back up. But this is also one of those times when you can catch probably the biggest fish of your life. So as we kind of approach this time of year where, you know, you're out of the fall, you know, the fish are starting to get a little more dormant. What's your first approach to, you know, the wintertime and cold water, you know, bass fishing?
Well, you know, so most of my life I grew up in California, and you know, now that I'm here in Georgia, everybody's like, man, how do you fish that, you know, real deep, clear water? And yes, there is, you know, some reservoirs and lakes like Shasta Lake, Orville, you know, that is what it is, you know, deep, clear water. But then, you know, you got lakes like Clear Lake, some of the local lakes where I grew up fishing that aren't that super deep, and the water isn't that clear. And then, of course, the California Delta, which is a whole nother animal.
Right.
But, you know, like you mentioned, you can catch some really, really, really big fish, you know, but going into this time of year, you just got to get the right mindset. Like, you know, you're not going to go out there. I shouldn't say never, because that's, you know, it's fishing. You basically go into it going, look, I'm not going to get that many bites. Like, you know, springtime, you can go out there, man, I caught them all day, and, you know, I caught 35, 40 fish, you know, whatever. Wintertime, when the water's just cold like it is, and, you know, it's tough. But like you said, you catch some really, really big ones. And, you know, like you said a minute ago, a lot of guys put their boats away, you know, and pretty much go deer hunting and things like that.
Yeah.
That's when I really, really, really look forward to throwing a jig. I mean, a jig in the wintertime, whether it's muddy water, deep water, clear water, whatever, a jig is going to catch you some big, big fish. And that's, you know, I love throwing a big football jig or a big, any type of big jig for that matter. Whether you're flipping it or throwing it, and shoot, I've caught fish. I won a tournament at Little Lake Lopez in 85 foot of water on a 1 ounce jig, you know, several times. So,
wow.
But having the right mindset is what it's about. You know, you're not going to go out there and catch 40, 50 of them a day. You know, a good day might be catching 7 to 10, 12 fish, and you're like, man, they were biting today, you know, but it's just the nature of it. You know, the fish don't have to feed as much because their metabolism slows way down. So that's where I think, you know, a big jig, or you know, in California, the big swim baits, they'll eat maybe once every couple of days, but they're going to eat something big. So they don't have to expend the energy to go around and chase stuff. So, yeah, it can be really, really rewarding this time of year. And there is some differences, you know, now that I'm here in Georgia. I've been here, let's see, I moved last October. So I spent last winter here and learning these lakes. And what's kind of weird to me, so in California, like we were talking about,
yeah,
you know, a bass is a bass, right? So
Nope.
they're going to relate to the same types of structure, but out here it seems to be, other than Lake Lanier, the water is a little more dirtier. Like we just had a bunch of rain; these lakes are like blown out. And coming from California, I'm like, I ain't gonna get any bites in this, but that's where they live. I mean, they get used to it. So, the difference is these fish here, even though the water temp is 45, 50 degrees.
Right.
It's taken me a while to understand that these fish are they'll bite a square bill right now, or flipping a jig on the bank. Not saying they don't live offshore, but a lot more fish live shallower here than they do in California. I think because of the water clarity and the type of structure.
It's funny you say that, because the last show we just did, we were talking to Zach Thompson and Nick Cloutier, and that's talking about wintertime fishing for bass. And those are two guys who fish they fish out here, the Delta, they fish Clear Lake, they fish all the stuff out here. And one thing they said was, bass stay shallow in the winter, even though you don't expect it. And it's still it's funny to hear. I've interviewed a lot of people, and guys like Ish Monroe, who are in the same boat. They fish out here, but they also fish back there, and they all say the same thing. That shallow to shallow to shallow. And I think that's one thing that so many people just don't get. That these fish will still be in 10 to 12 feet of water. They'll be right on the bank. They'll be, the red crest last year was, these guys were fishing 3 feet of water, 4 feet of water with, like you said, with big jigs and things like that, spinner baits. Now you say, and you say, hey, what, they'll be a little deeper out here. They'll be a little shallow, whatever it is. But how do you, I guess talking to someone and, who's so used to just going out and going, I'm going to go fish this winter or whatever, but I'm going to go out in 30 feet of water. I'm going to drag a worm and see if I can catch fish. Touch on a little bit about when do they it's like, dude, put that rod down, go hit the bank and start doing that, because it's confidence, right? I mean, that's what you have to catch a bigger fish in the winter, right? You have to have that confidence that, throwing that football jig or flipping and dragging or square bills or spinner baits is going to work. How do you tell somebody, hey, just do this?
Well, that's a really good question. Man, that's a really, really good question. It kind of depends on the angler himself. Okay. If you're going out to the lake and you just want to catch as many fish as you can and, try to get bites, fishing offshore, rock piles or a deep ledge or something like that with a worm, a drop shot, a shaky head, a smaller jig, you're going to put the odds in favor to get more of those bites. Okay. But if you're going, hey man, like it's so ingrained in me to always try to catch a big fish,
right?
That, like, I'll give you a perfect example. Last weekend, my son and I went to this little lake over here, and all I did was flip a jig all day on the bank, working on some bluff walls, just anywhere from 5 to 15 feet. And he's like, Dad, why don't we go over here and throw a drop shot on that bridge over there? And I'm like, that's not me. But, I caught myself going, we could actually probably go over there and get some, there's spotted bass and largemouth in this lake. We could probably go over there and catch them.
Right.
I didn't want to do that. So it's going back to the mindset. It's like, what are you trying to accomplish? Either way, you got to have confidence in what you're doing. I've spent a lot of time in the winter throwing a big jig for 4, 5, 6 bites a day. Now other guys, you know, in the local team tournaments in California where I grew up, they'd come in, man, we caught 35 fish today. Well, what'd you weigh? 7.5, 8 pounds. Okay. Well, I only got 4 fish, but I got 19 pounds. So I'm not saying either one is better.
Right.
It's really the angler himself going, all right, am I going to go out there and fish slow, methodical with a bigger bait, try to get, as many bites as I can, or, pick up that shaky head, pick up a drop shot, things of that nature, and, try to catch fish. Everybody wants to catch fish, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's a hard thing to do. It's not like you're gonna, even if you did throw a drop shot, you're not gonna go out there and just hose them all day. They're gonna be in smaller groups. And when you find a spot, especially with spotted bass lakes like Shasta, Oroville, you find an area where they got bait around and stuff like that. You might catch a ton of them in that one little area, but then it might take you the rest of the day to find another area that has fish like that. So it's,
right.
Or you're doing that, or you could be the guy, up on the bank, throwing a big spinner bait, throwing a crankbait, throwing a big jig, and, you end up only catching 8 or 10 fish throughout the day. So it's really, your mindset, and whatever you're going to do, you got to be confident. I mean, if you're out there and you don't want to be throwing a big jig, you're not going to catch one on a big jig. I mean, it's kind of it's a catch-22. I mean, you got to have the right mindset.
Right. And that's kind of the, I guess another leads into a really good question about that, the confidence thing. And I think I guess the question would be, when you have a time of year like this where, out here in California right now, we've got just a ton of rain. So you're talking about that back there, which is so rare. It's January. We're flooding in all kinds of places and things like that. So our lakes are a little bit torn up, but hey, at least we got water in them this time. Maybe this year we'll have some. But the confidence level, and I guess talking a little bit about how to build confidence in the wintertime is so, I don't want to say it's difficult, but it is a little more tedious, I guess, because you have to go out and spend the time throwing that Alabama rig, throwing the swim baits, throwing the big jigs, and keep it in mind that's, how do you, I guess, you talk about, you have to have that confidence, but how do you really build good confidence? Is it just the time on the water, or is it like, hey, I'm going to go learn every one of these baits? Because a lot of guys, gals, whatever, are fishing in, the wintertime because they want to catch that big fish. But as well as I do, even in California where there's a lot of big fish, catching that big fish is still very elusive. How do you kind of tell people, it's like, well, this is how you build confidence in something you're not sure of?
Yes. I would say, optimizing the conditions. So if in the wintertime, if you got a slick, bluebird, sunny day and high pressure, that's really not it might feel good to be out there on the lake. For us as humans being out there, the wind's not blowing, you're not that cold, the sun's out, everything's great. But the fish, that's not the optimal feeding period. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, when I was younger, I would pick the nastiest, rainiest, coldest day, and that's when you're going to get the most bites. It's not pleasant, but when you have those days where you put the odds in your favor, whether it's a moon phase, like I talked about, the weather conditions, overcast, kind of light breeze, low pressure, those fish are going to feed more on those days. So putting yourself in that situation is going to help you get more bites, and that's going to help you build confidence. if you go out there and you're like, all right, I'm going to throw this big spinner bait and a big jig all day. I'm going to do this, and 4 or 5 hours into it, you don't have a bite. You're not building any confidence. You're just like, they don't eat this. What am I doing? I'm going to go back and, throw my confidence bait, whatever it may be. And, you end up just recycling through the stuff you already are confident in. So if you turn the tables, you put the conditions in your favor, odds are you're gonna get a few bites to, give you that confidence to go, okay, now I know that they'll bite this, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And even if I have a high pressure, sunny day, no wind, I know if I throw this long enough and I put it in front of enough fish, a few big ones are going to bite. So it's tough to do. It's tough to, put on your rain gear when it's 45 degrees out and it's a little drizzly and the wind's kind of blowing. It's not fun.
Yeah.
But those days is what's going to help build that confidence and teach you a lot more than those, picturesque, sunny, beautiful days out there where everybody wants to be on the lake.
We have a process that we call simple price, simple process. And what that means is we take our lowest and best price and we post it on every single card. There's no back and forth. And by simple process, what that means is when you meet somebody, they can handle every aspect of what you do in your card transaction buying experience from beginning to
end. Yeah, I was going to say it's tough to get out of bed when that bed warmer is on.
Man, it's horrible. I mean, I'm telling you, like when I moved here last year, I was like, gosh, dang, it is cold. Like I lived in Central California on the coast, so a cold day was like 55. Well, here, a normal average day where I live now is like, starts out at 32.
Right.
and you got a little bit of, overcast and drizzly rain. I'm like, do I really want to go fishing? Like, really? And of course I do. And that's I've learned more on the nasty cold days about these lakes, because I mean, they're all new to me, than I have on those real nice, pleasant days this time of year.
Yeah. That kind of, you said a little something there, and it's, as you talk about some of these, these techniques you're throwing and you're using, and have you found that, I guess that, during the wintertime, that structure is one of the most important things, or are fish still roaming around a little bit more out in open water? Because the difference. It's so hard to talk to someone who doesn't really know the difference between, like a Shasta where you've got vast nothingness banks. You've got, they don't get the concept of, this lake just was down 200 feet, yet there's still fishable stuff there, compared, because you drop a lake 200 feet in Georgia and you're basically just walking across it. It's not, there's nothing there.
Oh yeah.
But when
it's a cow pasture. Yep.
Yeah, when you're out here, or you're out anywhere, you've got wood, you got rocks, you got structure. Have you found that, during the winter, it's more important to fish those kind of things than it is to fish like the open points, like that we have here at Oroville or Shasta or, any of the Central Valley lakes, that are just vast nothingness of water?
Well, yeah, especially nowadays with the, I got a Garmin Panoptics and everybody's got this forward facing sonar. So you can actually, be more accurate, I guess, with those fish that are roaming and things like that, like Shasta with those spotted bass. They're never going to get off those balls of bait. Out here at Lintner, they're never going to stop chasing blueback herring. But being able to get those fish to trigger and eat is a lot more difficult, I think, this time of year. In that open water. Now, you asked me about the structure. I mean, any lake I go to, whether it's in California or Georgia or anywhere in between, this time of year in the wintertime, I'm looking for like rock, chunk rock, boulder rock, and it has to have somewhat of a decent taper on it. Can't be real flat. You know, I mean, there's
Right.
it's not like never do that, but you know, those flat banks, maybe at the end of the day, if the sun's been out, yeah, fish will pull up on there and you can probably catch them. But if I'm going to a new lake, I'm looking for those kind of steep tapering, any type of bigger rock.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not saying riprap. I'm saying like natural, big chunk rock. And the jig, the crankbait, the spinnerbait, I mean, they just relate to it. The thing about rock is it's going to hold heat the longest, but it's going to get colder faster as well. So it's kind of a, I don't know. It's a double-edged sword there again.
Yeah, I was going to say, does that come down to more timing with, I guess with like the time of day. So if you've got, like you said, if you got a day that, you know, you get up and it's 32 degrees, you're on the water, you're out fishing, and, you know, maybe it heats up to 55 or 60 degrees. Do you wait for that to, you know, for that to happen, that transition in the heat upsides for that rock to get warmer? And that's when the fish will pull up? Or is it more, they're just going to be there? Or
I think they live there. So like many times throughout my career and just fishing in general, if I, you know, wherever I'm at, if I roll down the bank and, you know, doing whatever, and I get a bite or two and it looks right, and I'm like, man, there's gotta be, or even if I don't get a bite, if it feels right, it's got the right depth, the right kind of rock, maybe a little bit of wood mixed in or something like that. I'm like, well, I got to hit this again later in the day. And more often than not, you're going to catch a lot more fish later on in the day. It's just the way it is. Like, I can't remember ever going this time of year, first thing in the morning, the first couple hours, and just catching what I won the tournament with. You know what I mean? It's always like, maybe get a good one in the morning, but the bulk of your fish catches are going to be from that noon to 3 or 4 o'clock. I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird deal.
And that's kind of winter. That's kind of that wintertime pattern. One of the things you said in there was, you know, you added wood in that too. And, you know, a lot of guys talk about, you know, fishing wood everywhere. You know, it's like, hey, I'm going to go find this or go find that. Do you find that wood that's submerged will hold some fish, but somebody else pointed out to me that if you can find wood that has partially out, partially in, that wood will be more productive. Do you really find that? Because it's, you know, because the way they kind of explained it to me was that, hey, the wood that's out of the water like that, the sun, it comes up during the day, it warms up, that warmth moves down that wood, it gets into the water, and the fish will pull up onto that. Have you ever really found that to be true?
I mean, you know, I think I can see that. I understand that theory. I think more important than the wood itself is what it's laying on or what it's around, meaning, you know, the type of bank, whether it's mud or rock or chunk rock, gravel, whatever. I think those fish are living around, you know, that harder bottom, the rock kind of stuff. And if wood is there, whether it's submerged, you know, out off the bank, or like you're talking about a lay down that's halfway up on the bank and halfway in the water. I caught a couple of good ones the other day doing that. But I think they were using that wood because they were living on that bank, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean more positioning rather than I'm just trying to break down the wintertime fishing, because guys are gonna go out, people are gonna go out, and when they do fish, it's like, hey, if you find this, you might want to spend some more time on it, kind of thing. Because one of the things you have is I don't know, years of experience fishing a lot of different waters in a lot of different ways. And your confidence level is pretty high. I mean, you've accomplished some really great things in your career, been all over the country in fishing, and you've done well everywhere. And it's one of those, to give somebody that's listening to this show that little bit of confidence, finding those little things that maybe, oh, you know what, Jared was saying this, and that's just where I kind of see that, because it is hard fishing this wintertime. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Coming from out here, one of the things I was gonna ask you was, there is a lot of big swim baits being thrown out here, 8, 9, 12 inchers. There's the Alabama rig. Some of these big baits that really seem to shine in the winter. Have you found that those work kind of all over the place, or is that a California thing?
No, they'll bite them coast to coast. The problem is upper state, meaning Michigan, New York, upper state, up there. If you throw those big swim baits, you might not get them back because of the pike and muskie and stuff. But I've caught them in Florida. I've caught them here in Georgia, Alabama. A friend of mine in Louisiana, he's all into the glide bait thing now. I mean, it's fish. Like I said earlier, a bass is a bass. He's still going to eat, and he's a predator. I mean, if something comes by him that is smaller than him, or maybe not even, he's going to eat it. That's just their nature. I think, getting back to whether you're throwing that, a big swim bait, a 12-inch swim bait, or a big jig, or a big spinner bait, or whatever, if you come across the right looking stuff, the perfect example would be a 45-degree angle bank, some big chunk rock on it, maybe a little, mud mixed in, here and there, and a lay down log. And you're like, dang, this happened the other day when I was out with my son. Flip a jig out there, both sides of the log. I'm like, there's got to be a fish there. I mean, there just has to be. It took like 6 flips before I caught a 4.5 pounder. And my son's like, did you see that one on the Panoptics? I'm like, no, but I mean, it just looks so perfect. There has to be one there. And too many times throughout, fishing in California over many team terms and stuff. Right. A guy, lakes where I grew up were pretty small, Nacimiento, Lopez, Santa Margarita. Everybody's fishing everything. And you'd be like, oh man, a guy just pulled up right there, man. He's going to catch one. And they don't slow down enough. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you got to present that bait, whether it's, I've seen it at Clear Lake, throwing a big Huddleston swim bait or a A-rig, 10, 12, 15 casts of the same piling. All of a sudden, boom, there's a big one. And it's like, if you just make one throw down there, I'm not saying you're not going to catch that fish. Right. But if it looks right, slow down and make multiple presentations, and it'll shock you. It'll be like, dude, that fish has seen my bait like 8 times, and then the 9th time he bites it. Why? Well, I mean, you're kind of force feeding them at that point. But if it looks right to you as an angler, there's probably a fish there. So then, maybe, go ahead.
Well, you say that, and it's like, I've done that. I've been on Clear Lake. I've it's like, how many times you got to hit the stupid pole before the fish is going to eat it. How much has that, how much, with this wintertime, in the cold water, and those fish are a little lethargic, how much has the Panoptics really changed the way you fish in the winter? Because that's one of the things that, I get asked that question all the time. Is it worth buying? Is it worth having? And if I talk to, I don't care who I talk to, every one of the pros out there are saying, yeah, it's worth it. Do you really feel like for wintertime, it's changed your game?
Bass U, folks. Information is pouring over. If you want to learn more about every lake, how to fish shallow, deep, in between, skipping docks and rocks and cranking, slow wiggling, chatter, smattering, you get it at Bass U. We got the best of the best. If somebody's ever caught a bass on something and perfected the technique, we got you covered. Get on Bass U TV, check it out, sign up, be a member, be part of it, folks. Keep learning. I'm Gerald Swindle. Subscribe to Bass U.
Yes and no. As far as, fishing offshore on a ledge or a rock pile or things like that, I mean, used to be, you'd idle over it and you'd be like, oh, there's some marks there or whatever, and there's some bait, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, you back off, throw. Oh, they're not, those weren't bass or whatever. Now
right.
you're sitting there, you're looking at them. I mean, you can see like every fish. And the frustrating thing about the whole Panoptics is, and I'm sure you've talked to many, many guys, just because you see them doesn't mean you can catch them.
This is true.
So, it in the wintertime, it has helped with speeding up the process. In other words, if I idle over something, I'm like, all right, there's some fish there. I throw my trolling motor in the water and I look at the Panoptics and the fish are not set up right, or, I make a cast and they're real negative and they leave. Hey, guess what? Instead of making 30 more throws here, because I see what these fish are leaving when my bait drops through them, I leave and I'll go to another area. And then as soon as, you get around an active group of fish, or a really good spot or what have you,
right,
then you catch them. Now, as far as fishing shallow, first of all, in the winter like it is now, I have a really hard, this is me, I have a really hard time fishing super clear water. Like if I was at Lake Shasta, I wouldn't go out in front of Bridge Bay. Well, maybe now because the water's probably muddy. Yeah. But in that clear water, I wouldn't go out there and get on the bank. But I would run up in the McLeod or, way up the Sac and find that off color water. And that I think helps keep those fish shallow, as well as they're not as spooky toward your bait. So with the Panoptics fishing shallow, like again, going back to the other day when I went fishing, I'm flipping the bank and, just kind of going, and there's a brush pile like right out in front of the boat in 10 feet of water. I flip my jig instead of on the bank in the brush pile and catch fish. So, I mean, it does help you fish shallow, but I think when those fish are in that 10 to 3 foot of water in the wintertime, they're so tight to the bottom, either around a rock or around a stump or a laydown, that it's really hard to see them, on your Panoptics.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
Just going through the process of, hey, this is the right type of bank, right color water. I got the right color jig or spinner bait or crankbait or swim bait. I just got to fish, just go old school, I guess.
Yeah.
And just fish.
Now, you had hit something in there. How much difference does it make? And I know it's going to be some, but the colors now, because you start to look at, in the spring, the summer, I'm really matching the hatch. Whatever color crawdad is out there, that's what I want to throw, or whatever bait fish is in the water, that's what I want to throw. Does it change in the winter? Do you really just need it's something completely different, or do you stick with the same kind of color base? And how much does it really make a difference?
Well, I think it makes confidence wise, I think it makes a difference. Throughout basically from spring all the way up until the fall, if you look at the forage in the lake from coast to coast, the bait fish, whether it's bluegill, whatever, crawdads, whatever, they get more, I guess, colorful. Like the bluegill's got the chartreuse tails. Crappie get brighter. Everything gets real bright.
Right.
So there's your white and chartreuse. There's your bluegill color, this and this and this. In the wintertime, if you went up wherever and you caught a bluegill right now, other than in Florida, it would probably look like a green pumpkin, like there's very little color. So this time of year, depending on the water color, if it's muddy, I'm going to black chartreuse or black and blue. I mean, that's it. And if the water's kind of semi, it's like browns, green pumpkins, that more, darker color, whether it's a crankbait, jig, even a swim bait. I caught some the other day on a black and blue Kitech. I mean, it's if you were to go underwater and throw your aquaview down there and you look at what's going on, like not saying look at the bass, look at what their bait fish or crawdads, everything is dark.
Right.
And so, you kind of match the hatch this time of year, but more not your standout colors. I'm not saying they won't work because I'll be proved wrong for sure.
Of course.
But as a whole, from coast to coast, fishing, a lot in the wintertime, those darker, more muted colors seem to get more bites.
Good. That's basically what I think guys go out and do the same thing. It's like, oh, this is my favorite worm and I always catch fish on it. And they go out and have a bad day and they go, darn it, my favorite worm didn't work this time. So, changing it up a little bit, going with darker colors, going with something that's a little more seasonal color, color is important. You mentioned one thing in there that I talked to our fearless leader over here at Bass Angler Magazine about, and with Panoptics now, and you have all the sonar, all the things they have, why don't they let us use the Aquaview yet in tournaments?
So the Bass Pro Tour this past year at Mille Lacs, they all of a sudden they made a rule that, hey, you guys can use Aquaviews now. Everybody's like, what? And it was like, oh yeah, it's never not been available for you guys to use. And we're like, we read through the whole rules, and you can use it. Previously, me and many of my other friends and were under the assumption that you could use it in pre-fish, but not in the tournament. But now, I mean, growing up in California, I was never aware that you could use the Aquaview ever. But I don't know now. I don't see, you had a great point. Like, we have Panoptics. Why shouldn't that be allowed? I mean, it's really no different.
Honestly, you talk about Panoptics and it's like, guys are going, I can see out 100 feet or, whatever it is. And the limitation with Aquaview is you have to have that camera where those fish are at. Now, I can see if they said, during the spawn, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to use that, because you could, put that down next to a bed, literally, and back off a little ways and then, fish that way. I could maybe see that rule, but for the rest of it, it just seems like I think they're kind of important, for the fact that it's like, even with Panoptics, it's like, you said something earlier, you'd go over them and go, that wasn't a school of bass. Well, now you can check. Was that a school of bass? I don't know. Let's drop the camera down there. Yep, that's a school of bass. Oh, those are carp. That's one of those things you can see. I just heard you mention that, and I thought it'd be a good question.
No, absolutely. No, I don't see why not. I'm not advocating for it, but I'm like, with with everything going on with all the electronics these days, I mean, it's like, what's next, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, what you just said about that Aquaview deal. So many years ago, like I'm talking like 25 years ago, I was out at Lake Lopez graphing around, you know, rock pile deal. And I'm like, man, look at these fish. They're stacked over here. And, you know, the electronics weren't as good back then and real pixelated and all that stuff. And never had a bite. And I'm like, dang, man. Well, a friend of mine, he goes, hey, man, I'm going out the lake. I got this new Aquaview thing. This is or I forget what it was called back then. Anyway, I got this thing, you know, let's go, blah, blah, blah. So I said, dude, I found a bunch of fish. I don't know what they are, but whatever. He drops that thing down there, and there is 1 million red ear bluegill.
Oh, wow.
1 million. And I'm like, oh, okay. That makes sense why I didn't catch any fish or bass.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's just what you said, you know, now I knew what they were. You couldn't really tell on those, you know, the old school electronics because everything just looked like a fish. You didn't know what kind of fish.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me, you know, we're getting a little low on time, but I wanted to, you know, I want to kind of ask you a couple questions about some of the new stuff, you know, because you talked about the, you know, the Bass Pro Tour. This is what you fish.
Mm-hmm.
This is, you know, where you're at now. What do you think about the new changes that are coming to that, to, you know, going to a 5 fish limit again? You know, you grew up fishing. That's all we fish out here right now, except for one tour. So, you know, what is it that, you know, how do you feel about this new change and the way it's going to affect, I guess, your game and a lot of other people's games? I've heard a few, you know, people talk about, there's some guys who aren't going to do as well as they have been doing. Do you think it's going to affect many guys? I mean, these are pro guys. I mean, you are a top pro in this country. You've done very well for yourself. And you know, how is this new change going to really affect you?
Well, you know, to start off with, like, basically everybody that's on the Bass Pro Tour got there through the traditional 5 fish.
Right.
You know, so they've all had really, really good careers in the traditional deal. And, you know, they continued on. Like, I would say that if you put a 1 fish limit or a 10 fish limit, the same guys are gonna excel. For me personally, I'm really looking forward to it. Like, you know, growing up in California again and fishing the way I like to fish, you know, big jigs, big swim baits, frogs, buzz baits, you know, reaction baits.
Right.
A lot of times, you know, I found myself going, man, I really want to be up there doing this, whatever it may be, but I'm not going to catch enough fish to have a good tournament.
Right.
So I pull back the reins, and, you know, the whole while I'm out there looking, I'm like, oh man, that looks good over there. So now I'm like, well, with the way it's been for 4 years now, you know, you've had to be really good at picking up on patterns to catch bass, like a lot of fish, you know. So that's helped. But now going back to the 5 fish, it's like, okay, you know, if things go bad, I can fall back on whatever, you know, to get bites. But now I don't have to sell my big swim baits, and I can put in my other 2 boxes of frogs and my whole giant box of buzz baits back in the boat. One of my favorite things to throw is a Braybeck double buzz. I mean, it catches big ones. But in 4 years, I bet you on that big giant double buzz bait, I've probably weighed less than 5 fish in 4 years on it, you know, on the Bass Pro Tour. Because you can't, you know, you couldn't throw it. I mean, you could, but
it just wasn't efficient for catching a bunch of,
over a multiple day tournament. No, you can't do that. But now I can go back and fish the way I like to fish and target, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 bites a day rather than trying to catch 30, 40, 50 fish a day. So it's a different game.
Right.
And I think a lot of guys are going to make the adjustment really well. I mean, if you look at, guys like Andy Morgan, Randall
Right.
Tharp, Ish, I mean, they don't go out there trying to catch, hunter fish.
Right.
They stuck to their guns through this whole process, and they've done extremely well. So for guys like that, they're just licking their chops. They're going, okay, perfect. Comes back around. Here we go.
Yeah.
For some other guys that, were, and I love the catch all you,
Right.
catch
Everything
all you
counts.
can and
Right.
cumulative weight. I mean, I enjoyed it. But getting back to, let's go after these big ones. You're going to see a lot of different strategies, especially, if you look at it like with the with other tournaments, they have bass tracks and things like that, but it's not real time. Like it's an estimate. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
We're going to know exactly, like at any point in the day, all right, I got 12 pounds. What's the cut? Oh, it's 18 pounds. Well, guess what? Put down whatever you're doing and pick up something to try to get yourself back in this. You know exactly where you're at. So regardless of, we're starting off in Florida. If I'm in Florida and I'm punching mats and I only got 8 pounds and the cut is 20 pounds, I'm going to probably stop punching mats because I think I'm pretty good at it, but that's not what the big ones are doing. Maybe I'll have to go, throw a rattle trap or chatterbait offshore or something like that.
Yeah.
So seeing how guys make those real game time decisions is going to be, it's never been done before. It's never been able to happen. I mean, the days of waiting in the bag line, how much weight you think you got? Oh, I got, 17. And then Hackney weighs in 24. You're like, dude, you just told me you had 17. Oh, I was off. Okay. You're off by 7 pounds. I mean, now you're going to know. And it's going to really.
Tired of searching through ads to find bass articles in your favorite fishing magazine? Well, we have a solution for that. Introducing Bass Angler Magazine with over 30 articles in every issue, filled with tips and techniques to help you catch more fish. Follow the pros as they publish the most up-to-date seasonal methods to catching bigger bass. Whether you're a beginner or professional angler, make Bass Angler Magazine part of your gear today. Be a part of the fastest growing bass publication in the nation. Log on to bassanglermag.com with code TV and save 20% when you subscribe now.
You mean the trickery of the bag line is going to be changed?
Dude, this whole thing is, I've fished so many tournaments, and you're like, oh, how you think we did, or, how'd you do today? Oh, I did pretty well. I think I got, 15 pounds.
Right.
And then
27 pounds later.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, but now you're going to know, and it's going to be a fun, challenging, it's just going to be a different year to make adjustments. And I'm looking forward to it personally. I really am.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting just to see, like you said, it's the game change. And I think guys like you're talking about, guys like Ish, guys that, guys who are, I'm here to catch big fish. I like, that's what they're there for. Yep. They want the win. Don't get me wrong. Everybody will change their strategy. Like you just said, hey, I'm flipping grass, punching grass, and I've got 8 pounds. But I think the true changer of this game, not anything else, has been the score tracker deal. I think that's been the big thing, because like you said, it used to be you were out there in a boat by yourself or, with a partner if you're a team or whatever, and you are fishing against yourself in your head, because the other guys were never anything. They didn't mean anything. And I think that's what's changed this game so much is having these updates. Oh, by the way, this guy just stuck a 7-pounder. You're in Florida. This guy just stuck a 7-pounder, and he's now 12 pounds up on you. Cut lines 10 pounds ahead of you. Oh man,
Yeah, so, it forces you to make those decisions where, like you said, if you're out there by yourself or you got your boat official and there's no score tracker, you don't think you're doing anything wrong. You might you might think you're having a good day and,
Yeah.
you know, everything's going great and the weather's nice and you're doing all this, but then you get to the weigh-in and you're getting smoked and you're like, man, I wish I would have known. Well, now you know.
Now
So
you know.
can't go, well, you know, I figured they weren't biting. So I'll give you a perfect example. The very first Bass Pro Tour tournament I fished was at Lake Kissimmee, and it was a cold front, like one of the coldest days I've ever experienced on the water. When it gets cold in Florida, I don't know what it is. I guess it's the humidity or lack thereof, whatever. Wind was blowing, it's overcast, rain gear, drizzly, and every book that you ever read, magazine, whatever, fish in Florida don't bite in those conditions. Okay. So I run all the way from Toho to Kissimmee. And I pull up and my guy goes, yeah, lines were in, you know, 30 minutes ago because you had to lock and do all that. So you can fish. Okay. I'm like, man, it's going to be a tough day. And he goes, well, you're in like 28th place right now. I go, what? I go, dude, it's 30 minutes in. He goes, yeah, they're smoking them. And he starts reading off this list. I'm like, well, you know, if I wouldn't have Score Tracker, I would have just figured they ain't going to bite until later in the day if they bite.
Right.
I mean, they were smashing them. So my mental focus was like, okay, guys are catching them. I better get with it. Like, get on your juice right now. Don't wait. You better start catching them. Otherwise, you're gonna get sunk quick. Get demolished.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up with a top 10 in that tournament. But it's, you know, it's totally different mindset. You know, it's just what it is. It makes you do things you would normally not do. And the adjustments that you have to make throughout the day is pretty unprecedented. You know, I mean,
right.
Whether it's, you know, the last tournament I fished at Mille Lacs or the first tournament I fished, every tournament I learned something about myself and how to cope with what's being thrown at you.
Right. You know, it's interesting. You know, you say that because we have, I don't know, you're probably really familiar, but with the new Apex tour out here.
Yes, I think a year of that. Yep.
And, you know, I think in the future, it's going to be a really big game changer for us out here in the West Coast to not have to travel back, you know, leave and live in Georgia or live in the South or live, you know, somewhere where the tours are at, because we're going to have it right here.
Yep.
And it's coming fast.
Yep.
These guys, I mean, Jeremy's doing a great job of making this a real thing out here, where people can, you know, turn out and become a pro on the West Coast, which is needed.
Yep.
But one of the things that I've talked to a bunch of guys is that now they're fishing that way and they're fishing with that Score Tracker too, is it's made them a better fisherman in the sense that they now have to learn how to change a lot of things that they would never have done. And you just, you know, you kind of just pointed that out, that it's going to make you, do you think that fishing with the, you know, every fish counts and on top of, and the Score Tracker has made you a better angler and changed the way you fish?
Yes, on both of those. It has. I mean, like I said, you know, whatever you're doing, or maybe it's a location, if you know the score, you know what's going on. If it's not happening and you make a mental decision to continue down that road,
right,
at the end of the day, all you got to blame is yourself. If you don't give yourself a fighting chance. You know, there was another tournament at Watts Bar. I mean, I was not doing well, like having a bad morning, whatever, and I kept trying to force this bite to happen, and it wasn't happening. And finally, you know, my boat official was like, dude, I asked him, I was like, where am I at now? Oh, you're in like 38, you know, out of 40. I'd caught like 2 fish. I said, we got to go, man. And I spent 30 minutes and I ran all the way up the river, like just to get away from the water I was fishing, the clarity, the whole thing. And I just went fishing. Like I didn't even practice up there in the pre-fish.
Yeah.
I just pulled up on this random bank and I was like, that looks good. Different water clarity. I tied on a different jig, put on a whopper plopper, and ended up in 12th place in that whole tournament. So, I mean, without knowing that score tracker, I would have probably kept trying to force what wasn't there, you know, so
Right.
It makes you make those decisions to either have a good day or, like I said, continue down that bad road that,
Right.
you know, many anglers, including myself, have been on. I mean, you know, without the score tracker, I can't tell you how many tournaments where driving back home and I'm like, why did I keep doing that? Like, well, because, you know, I still thought I was going to catch him.
Right.
But if I would have known everybody else is catching them and, you know, I'm really the only guy that's having a rough day or not doing so well, guess what? It's time to go.
You
know, go do
know,
something, change the technique, change the spot, change depth,
Right.
change something.
you know that it's really funny you say that, because that's, I mean, you know, I've been out there and done the same thing. It's like at the end of the day, you're standing there going, and I didn't stop catching 7 pounds for what reason? You know, and
Exactly.
how much it leads to a really good question. It's a tough question, but it's really good question. When you're in a tournament and you don't have something like that, you know, score track, you're just in a regular old fashioned derby, you know, at your, you know, lakes. How long do you fish? And we can lead this right back to the winters, you know, to winter fishing, but when do you just go, you know what, 7 pounds isn't going to win a tournament for me on this lake? You know, you're fishing I don't know, Nacimiento or one of these, you know, places like that, you know, back here. And it's like, yeah, I know that this lake has 14 pounders in it. What, you know, what when do you stop in a tournament and just go, yeah, I have to have this much weight. And if I don't stop what I'm doing right now, because I have 7 pounds in the box and I'm going to need 30 to cash a check, you know, when do you, at some point you go, no, I've got to change up, because I know it's happened to you out there. It happens to everybody. Know, the best fishermen in the world. I've watched the MLF, the best fishermen in the world come in with zeros at the end of the day when everybody else, you know, had 40 pounds. And it's like, there's got to be a point that you stop and say, okay, here's what I need to do and change things up.
Yeah. You know, it really kind of depends on the fishery. Okay. Like you mentioned, Nacimiento or Shasta. Okay. If you kind of know, like, hey man, you know, if I'm at Shasta, I think 13 to 15 pounds probably going to, you know, be right there. Sometimes more. Clear Lake, man, if you don't have 24, 25 pounds, you don't have a shot. So if you're out there and, you know, you're doing your thing and you got 10 pounds at Clear Lake, and you know, regardless of the conditions of the time of year, winter time especially, it's still going to take 24, 25 pounds.
Right.
You got 10 pounds. You know, obviously you went to where you were most confident. Like you're fishing your confident bait in your confident area, whatever it may be. And you're like, man, it's noon or 11 and I got 10 pounds. Time to jerk the trolling motor, go somewhere, or get away from whatever you're doing. You know, maybe tie up a bigger swim bait or a smaller swim bait or a different something. You gotta make those adjustments. And there is no like, okay, I'm going to give this till 9:30. If I don't have them by 9:30, I'm going to go do this. You kind of got to feel out the day. And a lot of times, like with those spotted bass lakes, like Shasta, Nacimiento, you know, even around here, Little Lake Jackson, it's okay to have 7 or 8 pounds. But let's say you caught those fish on a shaky head or a drop shot or a swim bait or whatever, the odds are you're not going to probably luck into a 4 to 5, 6 pound bite throwing what just caught you 7 or 8 pounds. Odds are. But
Right.
if you say, okay, I'm going to, I got my limit. I'm going to pick up this big swim bait or this big jig or this big spinner bait and run to the back of this creek or find this off colored water. All I need is 2 more bites and I can win. That's a whole different game plan strategy. So it's, there is no set time. It's kind of like, you know what it's going to take to win. You better make those adjustments and go, okay, I gotta throw this bait to catch big ones, and then just force yourself to do it. I brought up a little while ago, I've seen guys so many times just sit there and catch fish and fish and fish. I mean, just one after another, and they weigh in 6.5, 7.5 pounds. Well, I caught 50 of them. Okay. I mean, that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But if you're in a tournament competing and you want to win, and you're not going to win with 7 or 8 pounds, then who's to blame? As an angler, you are. Like, you didn't do anything to help increase your odds. And trust me, it doesn't work out every time. Like, I've weighed a lot of 8 pound limits at these spotted bass lakes.
Right.
But also I've won a lot of tournaments with 7 or 8 pounds in the boat and then catch a 5 and a 6 later in the day and blow the tournament out.
Right.
But if I would have continued fishing for those, keeper sized fish, I wouldn't have caught those 2 big ones. So
I mean, that makes it is, and I think that's what separates the weekend angler who goes out and decides he's going to throw his $50 into a pot and fishes, no matter what the weather or what time of year, as compared to someone who's out there like yourself, putting up big money, putting out to get this and going from there, and it's. You have to have that confidence, and you get that from being on the water, but you also get that knowledge. It's because everybody's done the same thing. And it's like, God, I know if I just keep throwing this shaky head, I'm going to get a 6 pounder on it, which is probably different, if and it may be a subtle change. Like you said, go to a jig, go to something that might actually catch a big fish for the time of year that you fish it.
Right.
You've, like I said, you have such a great aspect because you fished all over the country, and from, coming from a state that, people really associate with big fish, and fishing the Texas and the Floridas and, all these bigger fish, and learning and understanding how to catch bigger fish in these cold temperatures and that kind of thing this time of year. Almost everybody that I talk to, the jig really pops up 100% of the time.
Oh yeah.
And it's one of those, it's one of those things. It's like, wow, that's, that right there should tell people, understand your jigs, get really familiar with these things. Cause the big baits come and go, the guys like, Paul Bailey sitting over here on Clear Lake throwing, the A rigs and the swim baits and that sort of thing. I really think that is such a specialty and such a hard thing to do in big tournaments. It's probably not your confidence bait going into, some tournament on a lake, even in Florida where there's big fish. I mean, picking up that swim bait and throwing it all day long, unless you're Steve Kennedy and you're on Clear Lake, you're probably not going to have a lot of confidence in that bait during a tournament,
right?
But a jig can give you that. So if you're listening out there and you're really thinking about it, almost every person that I've talked to says the number one bait they have in their boat, wintertime, cold water, everything, has been a jig. Now, to expand on that, how much is that jig all year long play in your game?
I mean, I'll put it to you this way. So I have 4 different boxes of jigs. I got flipping jigs, football jigs. I call them casting jigs. There's like a Eco Pro Tungsten makes a little Cara jig, and then I have some Arky head jigs, and they're those big planos, like the big thick ones. And it's loaded. And every tournament I go to, I at least have 2 of those boxes in my boat. It doesn't matter if it's right now or if it's, middle of summer. I mean, a bass is always going to bite a jig. I mean, sometimes there's, it's not the best bite,
right?
But day in, day out, a jig and a worm is going to catch you fish. I mean, it's period. And I would say, if you look over the course of all the history of bass fishing, you watch a tournament on TV or, the old Bassmaster Bob Cobb days.
Yeah.
Every one of those shows, usually in the top 10 or whatever, however many guys they covered, one of those guys is throwing a jig. Almost every time.
Right.
Whether it's Florida, New York, California, Alabama, Texas, it doesn't matter. They bite a jig. I mean, I don't know why, but they love it. And then you get into the whole trailer thing, and that, I mean,
right.
I think some days it doesn't matter. A jig is a jig.
Yeah.
One of my buddies in California that I kind of got me into fishing a little bit. He's like, a jig's a jig. Just throw this brown jig and you're going to catch fish. And there's some days it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the trailer. It really doesn't matter the color. I mean, they're just biting it. But if you want to get into jigs, like you said, you got to really dive into it. I'm not saying go out and spend $5,000 on jigs. Get yourself a couple different, styles and see which one you prefer. Like, there's you look on Tackle Warehouse, there is so many different flipping jigs. Just start off with, a simple 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce green pumpkin and a black and blue, and just go. I mean, just see which ones you like. Some guys prefer a 5 or 6/0 hook. Some guys like a 3/0 hook. I mean, they have everything is being made now.
Right.
And one of my really good fishing buddies, Nick, he swears up and down by this one jig. I can't throw it. I hate that jig. But he doesn't like the jig I throw. So, it's kind of what you're confident in, how you perceive what it looks like or how it feels. They got tungsten jigs. They got, there's so many different, and they're all work. Right. But at the end of the day, if you're not confident in what you're throwing, you're probably not going to catch it.
Right. Well, that's a great way to end up talking about some wintertime fishing, having some confidence with that. Jared, we got to end the show now, but I will tell you what, man, I really appreciate you coming on, spending some time with us. Good luck this year. I hope you do, wonderful out there. We're sad to see you go out of California. We could have used all the people we can get, but it's a good fishing, and talking with you, the wealth of information you have is just crazy, dude. And I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Well, I had fun. I'm looking forward to, I'm picking my son up from school, and the wind's starting to blow and get a little overcast. We're going to go to the lake.
All right. That sounds good, man. I wish I was doing that. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. Great show here. Jared, again, just appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next show. Should be Mr. Poulter. All right. Thanks again.